Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the next edition of AmiSights. I'm Hsu, your host, along with my co-host, Lynn Ozer, aka SBA Queen. Super excited to have my friend Michael Hsu on the line today, who, amongst many other accolades, understands numbers and profitability and cash flow and accounting, and how, as much as small businesses and entrepreneurs tend to hate this stuff, how important it is. Michael, welcome to the show.
I'm so excited, Ami. Thank you for having me.
Michael,
Yes.
so we know you know a lot about numbers, but we also know that you have a business. So let's combine them and go back in time and talk about, where did the drive to be an entrepreneur start? And was it because of numbers or in spite of numbers?
I think entrepreneurs are definitely born. So I thought I was going to drop out of high school and start a business and be a millionaire by the time I'm, 21 and a half. That did not happen. And I thought I was going to drop out of college, but the issue is dropping out of school is not an option for an Asian kid in America. You either become a doctor, a lawyer, or if you can't really make it, we'll take accountant. So that's kind of the family legacy. And I've always loved business, but then I needed to go to school. And my mother was actually the one who planted the seed and told me, if you want to be a good business person, you have to know your numbers. Numbers tell stories. You have to know your finances. You have to know about money. That's how you're going to be a good entrepreneur, which I later found out was a lie, because that's not what they taught us in school. But eventually I was able to, that planted the seed for DeepSky, Measure and Hack, and everything after that, because I realized what they taught in school wasn't what small business owner actually needed.
Interesting.
Well, Michael, tell us a little bit more about your journey, how you started your first company, when you started it, what it did, how that's evolved.
Yeah, the first company was actually, the first real company anyways, was DeepSky. I started it a year after graduating grad school, a year after I've been with a firm. And at that time, it was just a means to an end. I didn't want to work in a firm anymore. I didn't want to work for anybody else. I actually walked into my partner's office and I go, I hate accounting. He looks at me and goes, what do you want me to do about that? And we had a long talk. I ended up leaving the company, but then I started the accounting company because that was all I knew. I didn't have any money. I didn't have any idea of a business, but what I had my skills and I had time. So DeepSky started out to be a means to an end. I was just supposed to do outsource accounting, outsource bookkeeping for 2 or 3 years, make my money, and then start a quote unquote real business, which back then it was import export or a tech company or something like that. But then as I was doing it, I realized entrepreneurs really need help. Like, they have no clue what is going on. And it breaks my heart because I'm super passionate about business and entrepreneurship. I believe entrepreneurs are the solutions to the world's problem. And it's just absolutely heartbreaking seeing so many people who are so passionate, who build amazing things that go out of business, not because they don't work hard or because their stuff sucks, but because they don't understand finances, they don't understand numbers, and they don't understand money. And so I slowly, over the last 15 years, evolved DeepSky into, more of a CFO advisory, outsource accounting type of company, and then eventually developed the Measure and Hack method, which was everything that we're building, our methodology and teachings.
Let's dig into, well, first of all, tell us a little bit about who a typical client is for you.
So for DeepSky, a typical client would be 2 million and above. 2 million and above in revenue. Usually they go all the way up to, I say, 30, 40 million, at which point they would have their own internal accounting team, so on and so forth. So just guys who are really, you talk to those entrepreneurs where they feel like, hey, they're working so hard, they're throwing everything against the wall, and there's just no money, there's no cash. They couldn't explain why. Those are our audience. We try to get in front of them. We try to gather all of the information, all the data, and then and then show them a single pane of truth so that they can quickly identify what is going on in their business and then be able to work on either the bottleneck or the whatever it is that's not working. Because entrepreneurs are incredibly smart. If they know what the problem is, if they know what they need to work on, they can solve it. The problem is that most of the time they have no clue. They have no clue that they have a cash flow problem. They have no clue that they have a profit problem. They have no clue that they have an accountability problem or any of that matter. So it's just helping them to identify what the problem is.
So you think entrepreneurs, do they go right to either top line sales or there's something in their expenses, or they usually think it's sales?
Entrepreneurs, 90% of the time, there's two numbers for most entrepreneurs: money in the bank and top line revenue. That's the two numbers that everybody talks about, right? As long as there's money in the bank, and then as long as the revenue number makes me feel good, I feel good until things are too late.
Yeah.
That's always been interesting to me as a banker when they talk about, oh, we're going to hit the next $1 million in sales. I would think you'd be more concerned with the bottom line. What are you making on that? Not the number on the top. They are also proud to talk about that. And that really means nothing in the long run. You know,
but it's everywhere.
Yeah.
That's the whole.
Everywhere.
That's the whole Inc. 5000 like BS.
It is.
I used to struggle so hard when I go to Inc. 5000. That was like my aspiration. And I go around and people are thinking, oh, we can't hire fast enough. We grew 26,000%. I'm like, how? Like, what? How? Right? And I'm thinking I'm such a loser until they started becoming my clients. And then I look at their P&L and cash flow. I'm going, how do you go to sleep at night? But it's the one number that is easily verifiable. It's the one number that's easily understandable. And that's why it's the one number everybody focuses on. And I understand we want growth. And it feels so good to ring the bell to do 1 million, 5 million, 10 million, 20, 50 million. And they're no small feats. They're great things. It's just, there's so much more to that.
Yeah, it's super interesting how one of the things I'm really focused on and thinking about, like all these awards that people get, or even Ick does all these crazy awards now, all these lists, and this and that, and all these people, and everyone celebrates them. I remember I became a Philly Titan 100. I didn't even know what it meant. Okay, probably because I paid for the application. And
Right.
And we bought tickets for the dinner or something. And I must have had hundreds of congratulations and accolades and this and that. But I'm even thinking about it, like we're getting ready in the next few months at multi-funding. We'll cross $1 billion we funded for entrepreneurs, which seems like this amazing, and it is. It's a big accomplishment.
It's amazing. That is a meaningful milestone. But Michael, how do you get an entrepreneur to understand what the driver is behind their issue?
How do I get them to understand what the driver is? I try to keep everything super, 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 super simple. Not because entrepreneurs are not smart enough to understand that. These are really smart people. It just, I think there's too many BS in the world of accounting. We use jargons and words, and we created this thing called a cash flow statement that I guarantee you 5 out of 5 accounting graduates don't understand it. 4 out of 5 CPAs can't explain it. And 3 out of 5 CFOs have no clue. Like, who designed that thing? And entrepreneurs always ask, like, what is my cash flow? And they try to make it confusing. And I always say, look, keep it very simple. Question number 1 is always, are you building cash or are you burning cash? And then they go, well, what does that mean? Because I have these credit, all that, right? And I go, well, easy. What's your bank balance today? And what was your bank balance 30 days ago? If it's less, you're burning cash. If it's more, you're building cash. And that's your cash flow. And question number 2, once we figure that out, is if we're burning cash, how much time do we have to fix that? Right? And regardless if you're burning or building cash, the third question is always, well, how can we do better? And you do better on that by performance report. And your performance report is your PM, and it's just above the line or below the line. So I keep it very, very simple. And it's that this, I call it, the end of that, at the end of the day, your bank balance, your cash flow is that waterfall. It's big, it's grand, you see it, you feel it. Like when you're bleeding $100,000 a month, you feel that, right? That's the big waterfall. But then you track upstream. There's a river above. You track upstream, and then at some point you're gonna see issues, and then you dive deep. So that's all we do. We start at the waterfall. Are we building cash or burning cash? And we slowly work backwards. And then you work on the first place where you're like, oh, there's some issues here. Let's dive deeper. And then you get to the next and the next and the next. And every entrepreneur understands that instantly. I don't understand why we don't teach us that in accounting school. Instead, we're teaching us all kinds of BS jargons.
Yeah, all right. Ready for one of my beefs in life in the entrepreneurial world?
I want to hear it.
EOS, Entrepreneurial Operating System, has in our EO community for many become like religion. And don't get me wrong, I think there's an important role for EOS. It can help you run better, more organized. But for the life of me, I can't understand like the chicken or the egg, like what comes first, EOS or numbers. And what Michael's talking about, a core understanding of your numbers. How in heaven's name can you set priorities or rocks or strategy for your company if you don't understand the numbers and what issues there are around the numbers and your business?
Yeah.
And so many people are like, I need an EOS implementer. I need it. I go, it will be great. Do you know your number?
Yeah, 1,000% agree with you. But I think I know the reason why. It's because EOS are great at reaching out to entrepreneurs and selling this and teaching it to them and making it easy. You know what accountants are great at? Not that. Right? Most accountants I get so angry. Most accountants, literally, I remember when I was an associate at an accounting firm, this is one of the reasons why I stopped. You walk into a conference room and you have partners and directors and everybody talks in code. Literally, they're saying, according to FASB 64, blah, 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 and then according to PCAOB section 2-3. And I'm thinking that as associates, you just like write down everything so we can go back and Google. I wish we had ChatGPT back then, but you just write down everything, go back and Google it. But it's almost like they feel good if you don't understand it. It's like, hey, if you, either you're an internal auditor or if you're a CFO or if you're at the other firm or if you're the CEO, if you don't understand it, look at all my diplomas, look at all my degrees. That's exactly why you need me, because you don't understand what I'm talking about. And I'm thinking, no, your job is literally to help them understand it. But accountants are just so notoriously bad at it. And I think that's why, I mean, 1,000% agree with you. So I really want to change that. I really want to democratize that. I really want to make financial literacy, even better, financial intelligence available to all the entrepreneurs, because we just don't talk about money enough. As a society, we don't talk about money early enough. We don't talk about money often enough. And almost all the time that we talk about money is something bad. It's got a negative connotation to it.
It's interesting that you say that, because I really do believe that financial literacy in as early as you can is so important. I remember when I was a child, they used to have school banking, and we used to take money in on it on Tuesday, and they had an actual bank book where they would type in what we put in so we could see. And that was it. And then in third grade, you didn't do that anymore. That was only a second grade thing. And that was the end of it. And there was never another class the entire time I was in high school. And I believe that is so important, as is entrepreneurship. At least where I went to school, you were being prepared for college until you got to high school and you had a choice of going through college prep or a trade school. And that's it. There was nothing about, being an entrepreneur. And even though you probably need more years of school for either your skill or for business to be an entrepreneur, it has to start earlier. It has to start earlier.
Agree. Yeah,
And
I
especially the
don't.
way that you approach it, it is understandable at a younger age.
Yeah, I don't understand why we don't talk about life skills like, how to manage money. Well, I guess part of and part of the reason is it's just perpetuating, right? Even adults have no clue, right? They have no clue about loans. They have no clue about credit card. They have no clue. I remember the first time I got a credit card. I think I was 16. Maybe is that when you can get a credit card? And I racked it up because I didn't think. Well, when I racked it up like $600. But it was a lot of money, and I didn't have $600 because it just felt so easy. You didn't have to count out $10 when I go buy something. You just took a card and was like, and you don't learn that until you experience it. And I think it's the same way as entrepreneurs. The first time you get $100,000, you're thinking, I made $100,000. And growing up, when you make six figures, you're a big deal. But you don't realize as a business owner, you have cost of goods sold, you have employees, you have marketing, you have admin and all this stuff. And your $100,000, if you're lucky, might end up with $10,000. But most of them end up with -3. And nobody had that conversation with them, not their accountants, not their bookkeeper. And everybody have this mentality of accounting and bookkeeping is after the fact, and salary from accounting is boring, and it's a what do they call it, bean counter. The truth is, a lot of them are. So you have this again, chicken and an egg, right? Is it do the accountants need to level up first, or do the CEOs have to demand financial literacy first? Not sure.
Let's go. Let's now go to, so Michael is part of EO, Lynn, and for those listeners, many listeners here are members of EO Entrepreneurs Organization, but it's a global organization of entrepreneurs. And we have two levels. The first level is our EO Accelerator members who have revenue between $250,000 and $1 million, and then the EO members typically have revenue of $1 million. And let's start with how we educate the accelerators about cash flow, finance, and money. Michael, what do you think?
I think Accelerator is a great program. I mean, I started an Accelerator, and I met my mentor Michael Cato, Greg Keys, Rich Haig, and then I grew through that. So I think the program is fantastic because I've gotten so much out of it. We met, I think last time I was in LA, you were there as well. So I went back and then I did 1 hour talks, and you did too. So and I'm actually making that a mission for me. I would go around, and I think Greg Crabtree did a phenomenal job. He's a teacher of mine. When I started my business, he was generous enough to talk to me for multiple hours to kind of set up DeepSky, and he's the original founder. And I think there needs to be more of him. I mean, he's been doing this for 20 years? So I wish I can step into that mentor. I know you're doing above a lot of it. And there are a lot of people who are financial literate in EO, especially the EOA graduate. I think it's up to us to go back and to reach out to the learning chair. So instead of just the facilitators, because the facilitators are not always the financial guys, right? They might be trained for the programming, they can teach the programming, but it's up to us to bring in the latest and the greatest and the newest perspective on the cash day. And I think that's what I'm doing. I definitely encourage other EOers who are in the industry, who have financial literacy or financial intelligence, to be able to do that. And I always say this. So I'm in EO Taipei right now, and I'm in EO Vegas. I always say this. I think Vegas does a phenomenal job with it. Even when I was in OC, I said this. EOers needs to go to learning days, because there's so much content in the learning days that so many EOers can.
Right. Let's get into what here's, I'm going to challenge you a little bit. I went to my first cash learning day, and we talked about the power of one and cash flow story and profit first. Yeah. And I looked at all the faces around the room, and I was like, I don't think they were getting absorbing 10% of it a lot. And so I asked the coaches if they would have me be guests at some of their accountability groups. And I think I went to 3 accountability groups. And half of the profit and loss and balance sheet statements I saw were completely wrong.
Yeah, I'm surprised not more, but yeah, I agree.
Yeah. how are we teaching all these fancy ideas and concepts if the basics aren't right? And I bet that problem goes into EO as well. Sometimes I meet entrepreneurs who are not sure if they have $1 million of receivables or $10 million worth of receivables.
Those are my
And
clients.
so,
Yeah, that's my livelihood right there.
I know, but I say for all these things, people like in the scaling up community, they teach Power One, and I go shit in, shit out.
Yeah.
Power One's an amazing tool, but if you're putting bad information in from your accounting system, you're going to get bad information out. All this stuff around profit first and all the bank accounts and this and that, it's so freaking complicated.
Yeah.
How do we get back to basics? I think every entrepreneur should be able to read at a minimum and understand their profit and loss and balance sheet.
Yeah.
And if they don't, they're not ready for EOS or anything.
I love that. I need to like snippet that part and then just use that as my ad because EOS is sexy. You know, it's cool, it's strategy, it's rock, it's accountability. It's got all the fancy words.
Not strategy.
And then I'm sitting over here. I get it. Trust me. But I'm sitting over here. I'm going like, hey, what do you like to know about profit and revenue? And then they're thinking, oh, I already know that. But I'm doing my best to do that. So I actually started a online community off of the school group, SKOOL, called Financial Mastery for Founders. And in that, I encourage entrepreneurs, EOers to join because it's just free content where I sit down and I go through these things because I agree with you. I remember on Cash Day when I told you guys the question number 1, and I said, you know, all your cash flow is this month minus last month minus the month before that, and so on and so forth. Now do your last 6 months and then show me the total, average it. That's your overall cash burn. And I kid you not, I had this one girl who's got a notebook and she did all the calculation and she did this. She goes, no way. And she closes it, you know, and she had no clue. So, but I think that's a start. I think it's those things. I think, you know, I hope I'm doing something. I honestly, again, I mentioned Crabtree. I want to be this generation's Crabtree. I want to be that guy. I want to be the guy who democratize financial literacies because it should, like, I agree with you. Garbage in, garbage out. Keep it so simple because it's not hard. I think people are just afraid of it because, and I'll use another story why. I just picked up a client. They do $17 million a year. Good size business, incredible business, 0 financial literacy. And the CEO is a buddy of mine, EO, YPO for many days, goes to Harvard, you know, all these programming that we got, implements EOS, you know, the whole thing. And he sits down with me and he goes, and I sit down, I go over the financial with him and I showed it to him and he goes, I understand that. I can do that. And he goes, how come my director of finance, which cost me $180,000 a year, don't tell me that? And I say, what does he tell you? He said, well, every time I say, hey, what do I need to do about my business? I don't understand my financials. He tells me, oh, you're spending too much money. And then when I asked them, well, what money am I spending now? And then they give me these accounting jargons just to confuse me. And I'm so confused and embarrassed that I don't know what else to say. So I just stop asking him. And that's the story of 90% of the entrepreneurs because their CFO, their accountant, their controller, or their CPA confuse them. And that makes me so angry. So I'm trying to do my part and I invite anybody to come. And I think grit, we're doing great at that. That's why you see me always responding to it. I do my best to forget. I do my best because we have this like gap, right? Like we think everybody know what we know. You know, I'm not talking down to people, but I'm just trying to make it as relevant as possible because a lot of times I don't know what the problem is. But if an entrepreneur is willing to share what their problem is, I feel like I can do my best and explain it to it. And I think that's always been the difference between, doesn't matter if it's DeepSky or outsourced CFO for Measure and Hack, which is our methodology, or CFO Club, which we're teaching young accountants to become CFO advisors. That is always the principle. Rule number one is our job is to help the entrepreneur understand so that they can do something differently about their business and be on their way to achieving their goals. And I hope I'm doing that. It's been 15 years and I think I'll do this for the rest of my life, but that is my mission. Financial literacy to financial intelligence for all entrepreneurs around the world. In basic layman's terms, not some jibber-jabbish that some guy in the accounting office think up and feel good about because I don't know why they do that.
Tell us about your company today, how it's organized. I know you live in Taiwan right now. I think you do a lot of work in the States, like kind of tell the different parts of us. Tell us a little bit about your company.
Yeah, the idea of it is it's a flywheel. So DeepSky is an outsourced CFO advisory company. And we take over the entire accounting department from bookkeeping to accounting all the way up to reporting, forecasting, financial advisory. We help people put goals together, tie numbers to those goals. Anything you think about a CFO should do, would do, we can do it. Usually for companies between 1 to 40 million. That's the oldest company, been around for 15 years. That's what we do. And then from that, I created the measure and hack methodology that drives the entire idea, right? The first 3-part framework, very similar to EOS, all of that, which is vision, strategy, execution, and then measure and hack. Measure what you want done, know the numbers, tie all of the execution to it, and then incremental changes to be able to implement these things. So to me, it's just an add-on. EOS talks about visionary and integrator. And my saying is, how do you integrate anything if you don't have a navigator? So I think there's a third role that is missing. You need a navigator that help you identify what is being integrated, what is being done, what's working, what's not working, so that the visionary can make better decisions. That's the measure and hack methodology. And then that created the financial mastery for founders, which is an online community, online schooling, templates, tools, teaches the C-suite, CEOs how to read a set of financials, CMOs, how does their job affect the financials, COOs, how does their job affect the financials. So the whole suite can work together of understanding what they need to look at, how their job affects the financials of the business. It's all education, accountability based, online based. And then there's a third group, which is CFO Club. That's not geared toward entrepreneurs, but that is geared towards accountants and financial professionals who wants to do CFO advisory. Because again, like I said, they don't teach us that in school. They don't teach us that in grad school. They don't teach us that in college. So for kids that came out of grad school, come from college, they're saying, hey, I really would like to do more than bookkeeping, controllership, or BS compliance work. I really like to understand business and add value. I basically took everything in DeepSky, all the templates, all the project management, all the ideas, all the thinking, all the measure and hack methodology, created a program so they can do that. So then now we can have, because I can't service that many people. We have a handful of CFO advisors, maybe servicing 50, 55 clients at any given time. And I don't want to hire more people. So why not train the next generation, train the new generation of accountants and financial professionals so that they can take over? So that's kind of the flywheel they should feed into it.
Is this for all the U.S.? Is it around the world? Where is?
Yeah, mostly in the U.S. I think I again, help the backyard first, right? Help the backyard before I reach out to the world. Because I spend so much time in Asia because of my family, I am having more and more Asian clients, Asian company clients, but mostly because they're EOers and YPOers, they're my friends, so I help out a little bit. So, but mostly I would say 99% geared towards US companies, US. Yeah.
But is your
Are
team?
your employees in Taiwan or are they in the United States?
So our accounting team are mostly in the Philippines, and then our CFO advisors are mostly in the United States. Actually, all of them are in the United States. Just again, for time zone, relationship, culture, language, all of that.
Right.
We used to have a Taiwan team, but they're on pause right now.
What are your challenges by having your employees worldwide and not just other places? What are the biggest challenges of that?
I don't know if it's because they're worldwide. I think they're just same employee challenges as anywhere, which is accountability and education. A lot of times, despite teaching and educating them, they will still default to what they learned in school. And I get so frustrated because things like we have 3 brand promises, right? Financial wingman, actionable data, absolute confidentiality. They're pretty good with the confidentiality part, pretty good with the actionable data. But financial wingman part, the way I see it is, it's almost like somebody watching your 6 all the time. And I get really frustrated when an accountant or even a CFO do something that say see a bill comes through or see that the bank account is low and don't immediately think, hey, somebody might need this information. The CEO might need this information, or so on and so forth might need this information, and then pass that along. And that, I think the struggle is be able to take that and then build it into a repeatable process. But I don't know if that's a worldwide thing or if that's just all employees. I think it's just, better system and processes, better education.
Michael, how do our listeners find you?
So I'm on Instagram a lot and LinkedIn, obviously, Michael Hsu. But the easiest way right now, I keep pushing, especially entrepreneurs that are listening who wants to get financial literacy and financial understanding. The online community is on skool.com/numbers. So that's a community that we're pushing. And right now it's free. We're going to start charging for it in a little bit here, but even then it's going to be double-digit fees. So imagine getting access to CFO level in double-digit fees. So I think that's something really incredible. And we're working on the back end a little bit on something else that we will release maybe 6 months later.
Michael, it's been a great pleasure to have you on the show. Thanks for everything you're helping with in our great community and keeping up and helping so many entrepreneurs and the work that you do. And keep on at it, my friend.
I love the keep it simple rules. That's great. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.